I've heard you tell this story several times about an interaction you had, a communication with a troop of baboons that lives near your house. And I thought you might like to share that with your viewers.
Yeah, it's a good story. It's a real cute story. Um, but in order to tell the story, I've got to do a little bit of background. I think most of you watching this video won't really know baboons. I think most of you are probably in the States or in Europe. Um, so baboons are interesting. People that live at the interface with baboons, um, like myself, people who live on farms or kind of small holdings on the edge of the urban fringe where baboons come into their yard, into their homes, generally have a very poor relationship with baboons. They generally consider them to be vermin, and I also understand why. Baboons will not just raid for food; they're also quite destructive. If they come into, let's say you've got a fruit tree, take one bite of an apple and throw another bite and throw and break the fruit tree and destroy your other crops. If you've got a few rows of maize, they'll just break it all. And so people really have some antipathy towards baboons. Um, and if they weren't protected as they are, they would very often be shot. That's how people feel about baboons. So when we moved to this piece of land and became aware that there's an interface, there's a confluence of two troops of baboons quite near to here, I thought I've got to do something about this. And at that time, I was busy developing my animal communication techniques. I was learning how to talk to animals. It's obviously a telepathic, a psychic communication. It happens inside your mind. And we'd moved here and we'd started to plant crops. And so I decided, now or never, got to talk to the baboons. I wasn't sure what exactly to expect. So I closed my eyes, went into a deeply meditative state, and held the intention that I bring myself before the troop leader. Baboons are patriarchal. There's an alpha male who is the boss of his whole troop, and his troop can be huge. But anyway, so that was who I wanted to speak to. And what happened in my mind's eye, where I immediately arrived, was this big male baboon sitting, looking very proud of himself, very kind of noble in his baboonish way, and a little circle of, I don't know what, his senior wives, his elder children, I don't know what, but there was clearly a circle, and I was to stand in the middle of the circle. And he was very ostentatiously looking away, looking up into the sky. And eventually I sort of think it's time to begin the conversation, and I sort of, may I? No, like this. He's looking into the sky, establishing his authority. All right, I wait. And then he looks at me. And look, in my mind, I got this sort of a broken English. I don't know why, but this kind of, why you here kind of a thing. And so I made my case as clearly as I could, and I expressed it verbally, because I'm a verbal being, and I also presented images, and I showed my land. And I showed that there's a boundary to my land, and beyond that boundary is it's state-owned land. It's protected. And I said to him, this is where humanity stops. And I'm not going to come and invade your land, and I'm not going to come and steal your food. We're not going to come and hunt you. We're not going to come and disturb you. you're free on that side, but this side is mine. And this little piece of land is mine, and please leave my food alone. And what followed, it took a little while to get into the flow. It took a little while for him to trust me, because he kept thinking I was going to threaten him. Like, if you don't, I'll shoot you, which I wasn't there to do. I eventually had to say to him, look, I'm under no circumstances am I going to shoot you. I'm not wanting to negotiate with you. I'm coming to have a conversation. I'm here respectfully. And when that started to dawn on him that I was here respectfully, that he liked that. And it unlocked. This is Pikachu inviting me to a game of ball. So if I throw that ball, that's all I will do for the rest of the session. So I'm not going to throw the ball. No, Picky, we're not doing that now. We will later, I promise. Okay. So what ensued was a very interesting conversation. He explained to me why baboons do what they do. He explained that they don't really see themselves as awfully different from us. They don't think we are almighty superior to them. They look at us and they think we're a bit ragtag, because here he is with his 60 wives. How many wives do I have? You know, this kind of an idea. And he's the boss of the whole troop. Where's my troop? So not worthy of a lot of respect. And I tried to explain to him some of our perspectives, and I tried to put it in terms that he got. And what he explained to me is, so here we are, these semi-hairless baboons, and we come in and we invade their territory. And what they do, when one baboon troop has a dispute with another one over territory, is that disputed turf, they will come in and they will raid, and they'll make sure there's no food there. Even just destroying food plants, just making sure there's no food there. So that for your competing troop, they have to go forage elsewhere. They give up on this land, and then you can claim that land. So if you're a forward-thinking baboon with a growing troop, then you engage in these kinds of strategies. And so I explained to him, I said, you know, we're in some ways very similar, but in some ways quite different. I've got food growing on my land, but if there's no food on my land, I'm not going to leave. I still stay just here, because I'm able to go elsewhere and get food and bring it here, and it's not difficult for me. It's quite fine. I can do that. So it doesn't help. It doesn't serve him in any way. It doesn't serve his troop in any way. And please, won't he respect this? And something, I suppose, just in the honesty, in the fact that I was just asking him and had this conversation with him, he said, yes, okay. Yes, okay, that's fine. He's going to do that. And so I had this happy little fantasy in my mind, this little story that I told myself inside my mind, and that would be the end of that, except for the fact that that's exactly what happened. All the neighbors around continued to get raided by the baboons, and we didn't. No baboons. They just left us alone, quite magically. And then one day, some years after this, we arrived home and could see that the garden had been raided. And I was quite irate, because what happened to my deal? You know? So when I calmed myself down, I went into a meditative state again, and I connected with him. And this time he was sitting alone in a tree. And he said to me, everything has changed. And he smiled at me, but I noticed when he smiled at me that his smile was different. These huge canines that baboons have, and they've got monster canines, their primary offensive weapon of these canines, they'd fallen out. He'd lost them. And he helped me to understand that this is a natural part of the cycle of life. This is what happens. The big chief must at some point tumble, and one of his own sons will challenge him, or perhaps another male from outside will challenge him, and needs to be bigger and stronger and becomes the boss. And so this is what had happened. He was deposed, was kicked off of his throne. And he explained to me that there are two options available under those circumstances. The one is to become kind of the joker of the troupe. You become almost the lowest of the low. Even the little baby baboons will steal food out of your mouth, and you really are treated quite poorly. And he said his dignity wouldn't allow that. The other option is to leave and to go become a bachelor baboon all on your own. And he said, but it's dangerous, because the reason a baboon troop survives is many eyes, and they all watch out for each other. And so, for example, a leopard, which is baboons are a major part of the leopard diet, and there are leopard around here. A leopard can't sneak up very easily on a baboon troop, but a single baboon sleeping alone in a tree is really prone to being hunted. So I understood, and I said, okay, and thought, well, now what do I do about my problem? And I went and had a conversation with the new baboon troop leader, which is a story probably longer than this one, because he was initially incredibly recalcitrant, and he just, the arrogance of youth, the new king, with his whole kingdom and all of his many wives, and who is this now? And he wanted nothing to do with me, and it took me a few conversations to even just get him to talk to me, and eventually I persuaded him by negotiating a deal with another baboon troop. Long story, funny story, but not the one I'm telling you today. The story that I'm telling you today proceeds with us becoming aware somewhere around 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning. If you get out of bed and walk into the lounge, you hear a movement out on the deck. And if you look quickly, there goes a baboon. And what's this baboon doing? And it was every single night. So I again checked in now, who's this baboon? No, it's the previous guy, this newly deposed bachelor. And what's the story? Well, he feels very unsafe. And he decided, and it really touched me, he decided that the safest place that he could sleep those crucial hours of the night where his life was in danger, the safest place he could sleep was on our deck. And if you know something about baboons, everyone will tell you that that's a terrible thing to have happen, because they pull the windows out of their frames, and they get into your house, and they wreak havoc, and they destroy everything. And baboons are terrible beings, and they're just trouble. And he was the very soul of respectfulness. He damaged nothing. He caused no harm, caused no chaos. He arrived when we were all settled down and asleep, and when with our first movement, he took off and left. And that carried on for some months. Sort of became a part of the pattern. That's what you expect. And then somewhere along the line, we noticed he's not there anymore. Because, of course, he completed his cycle of life. And I don't know what happened to him. Did a leopard take him? Did he die of some other cause? I don't know. It doesn't really matter how he left. Point is, I knew him, and in a strange way, he was my friend. Not the kind of friend that you physically go and give a hug to, but I knew him, and he was my friend. And he was true to his word. Little final vignette about him. After I was done speaking to him the first time, when we'd first come to our agreement, we have baboons and we have monkeys, very different creatures. If you don't know them, the one's a bit bigger than the other one's big and the other's small, but they're entirely different creatures. So monkeys also raid. So I was talking to Big Boss Baboon, and I said to him, well, thank you so much. It's been an honor to speak to you, and I look forward to further conversations. But now I must go speak to the monkeys. And monkeys, they have no culture. So, yeah, that's story time with Uncle Zingdad and the story of my friend, the Big Baboon.